Almost every culture on Earth, separated by oceans and thousands of years, independently came to the same conclusion: do not go into the deep woods at night. Isn't that weird? They all imagined different monsters, different spirits, different reasons, but the core warning was always the same. It's a historical mystery that points to something incredibly deep about us humans. This video is about solving that mystery. I'm going to show you the single psychological pattern that connects the world's most haunted forests, from Germany to Japan to Transylvania, and how you can use that pattern as a blueprint to build that same ancient dread into the very DNA of your world. To start, we need to look at the hardware this all runs on, our own brain. The fear of the forest doesn't start with a monster, it starts with math. In an open field, your character can see for miles and hear threats from a predictable range of directions. Their brain can easily calculate risk. But the moment they step into the woods, your hero's internal threat detection system goes haywire. Their sightline collapses from miles to just a few feet. The sky vanishes, replaced by a ceiling of branches that make the world feel small and tight. At the same time, sound becomes a liar. The trees and leaves absorb and distort every noise, making it impossible to tell if a snapping twig is 10 feet away or 100. In a matter of seconds, your character's two most important survival senses, long-range sight and accurate hearing, have been rendered almost useless. This sensory breakdown triggers a very specific and ancient program in our brains. The program that tells a prey animal it has wandered into a trap. The primal biological panic that screams one simple message: you are no longer the hunter here. This is an instinct you don't have to invent for your characters. They arrive with it pre-installed. The forest is a naturally occurring ambush zone. A threat can come from any direction, including from above or below, forcing the brain into a state of high alert paranoia. It's trying to process 1,000 potential dangers at once, and it creates a powerful feeling of being watched, even when completely alone. This is the blueprint for fear. The terror isn't something you need to add to the forest, it's already there. So as a writer, your first job isn't to dream up a monster. It's simply to activate the fear that already exists in your character and your reader. You do this by describing the sensory failure. Instead of writing "the woods felt eerie," write "Glumriel flinched at the sound of a falling branch, unable to tell if it was behind him or to his left." Don't tell us the forest is spooky. Show us the character trying to peer through the gloom and seeing only shifting shapes, their heart pounding because of what they cannot see. This biological reality is the seed from which all our darkest myths about the woods have grown. But an instinct is not a story. A feeling of vulnerability is not a monster. So how did our ancestors bridge that gap? How did this universal primal fear of the hardware get turned into the terrifying software of folklore? Well, our ancestors did it by giving the feeling a face. Think about it. They didn't have the language of evolutionary psychology. They couldn't say, "my amygdala is firing because of a sudden loss of sensory data." But they had to explain that sudden cold dread anyway. They had to explain the feeling of being watched. So they did what humans do best. They told a story about it. They took that internal feeling of vulnerability and gave it an external cause. They pointed into the shadows and said, "There, that feeling, that's a thing. It has a name." That thing became the spirit of the woods, the lurking beast, the witch in the gingerbread house. Or think of the will-o'-the-wisp. The will-o'-the-wisp is a flickering light that promises a path home but only leads you deeper into the dark. Every one of these creatures is a mask worn by the same faceless fear. The instinctual panic of a human who has wandered out of their element. And this is a huge tool for us as writers. It means that our monsters and spirits shouldn't be random. They should be a direct answer to the specific fear the environment creates. But this goes even deeper than just creating monsters. Because once a place gets a reputation for being the home of these entities, it stops being just a location. It becomes something else entirely. It becomes a place with different rules. For our ancestors, the village, the town, the city, wherever they lived, these were places of human laws. You knew who was in charge, you knew the customs, you knew what was expected of you. It was a predictable, ordered world. The forest was the line on the map where that world ended. It was the place beyond the reach of the king's law and the village elder's judgment. It wasn't just a place without human rules, it was a place that operated on a completely different set of rules altogether. The laws of nature, of magic, of the things that lived in the dark. This makes the forest a threshold. The magical doorway between the world we know and the world we don't. When your character steps across the tree line, they aren't just changing the location, they are fundamentally changing the reality they inhabit. This is why in so many of our great stories, the hero's journey begins at the edge of a forest. It's where Luke Skywalker would have gone if he'd been in a fantasy story. It's where the Fellowship of the Ring must pass. Where the children of Narnia step out of the wardrobe. The forest is the first great filter. It's a trial that determines if a character is worthy of the adventure ahead. Understanding the forest as a threshold gives you a powerful way to structure your plot. The simple act of entering the woods can become a major turning point for your character. But not all forests test a character in the same way. The specific rules of one forest might be completely different from another, and the nature of that test is what gives a forest its unique and terrifying identity. To understand how this works, let's look at 3 real-world forests that have become legends. Each one is a masterclass in a different kind of fear, and you can use them as a template for your own world building. First up is Germany's Black Forest. This is the source code for almost every Lost in the Woods fairy tale you'd ever heard. The brothers Grimm didn't just invent Hansel and Gretel. They collected stories that were born from the deep disorienting darkness of these woods. The fear here isn't just about a wolf or a witch, the fear of the labyrinth. It's a terror of losing your path, of walking in circles until your sense of direction and your sense of morality begin to dissolve. In this kind of forest, the real monster is the loss of certainty. It's a place that asks your character, who will you become when you are well and truly lost? Next then we travel to Japan and the Aokigahara forest at the base of Mount Fuji. This place is famous for a different, more chilling reason. It's unnaturally quiet because the dense trees and porous volcanic soil absorb sound. Magnetic compasses can be unreliable due to rich iron deposits in the ground. It's incredibly easy to get turned around here. But the horror of this particular forest isn't about what might find you, it's the fear that you might not be able to escape yourself. This is the archetype of the mirror. The forest's oppressive silence and isolation don't hide a monster, they amplify the darkness a person brings with them. It reflects a character's internal despair, their guilt, their trauma, making it impossible to ignore. The test of this forest isn't survival, it's sanity. This is why local folklore says the Yurei, the ghosts of those with unfinished business, are drawn here. This forest doesn't just reflect your feelings, it's said to hold on to the echoes of all the sorrow that has passed through it. Finally then, we have the Hoia Baciu forest in Transylvania, often called the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. People who go in report strange rashes, intense anxiety, and missing time. The trees themselves grow in bizarre, unnatural spirals, and at its center is a perfect circle of ground where nothing has ever grown. The fear here is completely different again. Not about losing your way or confronting your inner demons, it's the fear of the anomaly. It's a deep unsettling horror that comes when reality itself seems to break down. The forest here isn't just home to a monster, the forest is the monster. A place where the fundamental rules of the world no longer apply. Now these 3 forests give us our models, the labyrinth, the mirror, and the anomaly. Each one creates a unique type of fear that goes far beyond a simple creature in the dark. And so now that we have these archetypes, the question becomes, how do we turn them from interesting facts into powerful tools you can use to build your own worlds? This is where we turn all that theory into a toolkit that will help you get unstuck. Because the next time you're staring at that blank spot on your map, you should stop asking yourself, what monster should I put in this forest? And instead you should ask a much better question. What kind of fear is my forest? Is it a labyrinth, a mirror, or an anomaly? Once you have that answer, the world building choices become simple and powerful. You decide your forest is a labyrinth, you're building a place that attacks your character's sense of certainty. Your job is to design a setting that actively works to get them lost. Maybe the paths shift when you're not looking, maybe the stars are wrong, or maybe it offers tempting shortcuts that always lead deeper into trouble. The goal here is to create a scenario that erodes their confidence and forces them to make morally great choices just to survive. Like a knight who values law and order might have to steal from a hermit's cabin. Or a character who prides themselves on their logic might have to trust a completely irrational gut feeling. The labyrinth's test is about what a character becomes when their compass breaks. And as a pro tip, a labyrinth doesn't just have to confuse space, it can confuse time too. A path that should take an hour might take a day, or a day might pass in what feels like minutes. This attacks your character's most fundamental sense of reality. If you choose to build a mirror forest on the other hand, your focus shifts from external chaos to internal conflict. The forest becomes a stage for your character's deepest flaw or trauma. Your design choices should all serve to manifest that inner demon. If your character is running from a past failure, the forest might be filled with illusions of the people they let down. Or if they're arrogant, the forest could present them with challenges that their strengths are useless against, forcing them to rely on others. The test of the mirror forest is forcing a character to face the one monster they can't outrun, themselves. And a pro tip for this one? The most effective mirror forest is subtle. Instead of showing a little ghost, maybe it just causes the character to mishear their companion's words as their worst fear, creating paranoia and distrust. And if you build an anomaly forest, you're creating a place that attacks the reader's understanding of your world itself. Your job here is to pick one fundamental rule of your world, how magic works, how physics works, how time works, and make this forest the one place where that rule is broken. In a rule where magic requires spoken words, this forest could be a place of absolute deafening silence where spells still happen. Or in a world with a single sun, this could be a forest where 2 shadows are cast. The anomaly forest creates a powerful mystery. The question is no longer will the hero survive, but what is happening here? The forest itself becomes a plot point that demands an answer. The pro tip for this one is that the best anomalies start small. Flower that blooms in the snow, a stream that flows slightly uphill. Let the wrongness creep in before you reveal the full extent of how broken the rules are. So to make some actual progress yourself right now, pick one of these 3 archetypes. Then, in the comments below, I want you to write a single truth about your forest. For example, the Weeping Wood is a mirror forest that shows travelers visions of the persons they miss the most, luring them deeper with false hope. Giving your fear a name is the first step to building it, because now you have a foundation. You've moved from a vague, spooky feeling to a concrete design principle. This is how you build a forest with real tension that is grounded in the fears we've inherited from our ancestors. But a powerful setting is nothing if the story happening inside it feels just as lost as a traveler in a labyrinth. Most fantasy writers spend years on the world, only to outline a plot that goes nowhere, using generic templates that kill the magic before it even starts. Now what if I told you the best fantasy outlines aren't built on plot at all? They are built on just 15 emotional scenes. That's it. The system I've refined over 25 years that gives you total clarity and momentum even if you hate planning. So if you're ready to stop feeling stuck, I've laid out the entire method for you in this video right here. Click it and let's get your story moving.